Hamstring. That's a word that's been going through my mind in light of recent events. The word hamstring, and as it applies to law enforcement in particular. I'm going to go to the Bible to explain the act of hamstringing. After a battle, what the victors would do with the enemy's horses is go through and hamstring them. And those horses would become useless as animals that they could use in battle. Okay? Sounds pretty harsh. You can't ride the horse. You can't do anything with the horse. It can barely walk now. Those muscles they need to run, they can't use them anymore because they've been hamstrung, they've been cut. Another thing they would do in ancient warfare was, again, the victors would cut off the big toe of the king, of the defeated king. And you're probably wondering, why would they do that? Well, we're talking about ancient warfare where they would use swords, bows, arrows, and so on. So, in your foot, what actually holds up your body is your big toe, little toe, and your heel in your foot. So if you cut off the big toe, it takes away part of that part of that triad. So the king can't gain his footing during battle. And you may be wondering, why am I saying all this? Because when I started, I said hamstringing as it pertains to law enforcement, because that's what's happened to law enforcement since the death of George Floyd and Rayshard Brooks. Because now cops cannot effectively do their jobs. That's what's happened. In this rush to pass legislation to hold law enforcement accountable for their actions against civilians, such as no choke holds, or the use of the knee on the back of the neck, and then there's other things that are being called into question. I'm going to use Rayshard Brooks as an example. Now, you're talking about an incident that started out fairly calmly and peacefully until they pulled out the handcuffs. And that's when things escalated. They had to arrest him. He was drunk. So some people said, well, couldn't they take them home? I think that's a small town in Hollywood thing. Just think about it. So the next step was to arrest him, and that's when things escalated. And these officers were charged. One officer, the one who fired the shot, was charged with murder. Don't get me started on that one. They were both charged with assault. And I'm assuming the assault was from, now the DA claimed that there was a video that showed them kicking Brooks after he was down, and one of them allegedly standing on his shoulders. I say allegedly because sometimes the angle of things might show something different. We haven't seen these videos. And there's something else I could say that's going to take me down the bunny trail. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stick with the hamstringing. So now cops are being charged with using tactics that they're allowed to use to do their job. Which now it's like they have to question everything that they do for fear of A, being prosecuted for something they do to do their job. B, when it comes to people of color, it's like, should I shoot or not? Are they armed or not? Sadly, what people don't realize is that police have to make split-second decisions because it can literally mean not only a matter of life and death for them, but life and death for the victims, and how they act. Or should I say how they react or in a situation. So they've been hamstrung because now they have to question, scrutinize every single decision they make. Now, I've seen some posts on social media about, the defunding thing and, teachers saying, well, that's been happening to us for years. It's a different situation. It doesn't make what's happening in education right, but it's a different situation because you're literally dealing with life and death. You're dealing with life and death potentially life and death situations. And I remember a few years back, there was, and I want to say this wasn't long after the Michael Brown and Freddie Gray and all that, where an activist went on a ride-along with the police department, and it changed his mind. It changed his attitude toward law enforcement because he got to see firsthand what they have to deal with and how, if they don't act, they can end up dead or someone else can end up dead. Not the perpetrator. It's usually police or some other victim. It could be collateral damage, where somebody gets caught in a crossfire. So when police are having to question every single little thing that they do, they can't effectively do their job. And that puts the public at risk. So that's why I use the phrase hamstring, because they have been hamstrung or are being hamstrung. And unfortunately, these policies are going to go into effect in some places, and people are going to realize we were wrong.